Commission. We do have a quorum, so if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Bow our heads. And Father, once again, we thank you for guiding us through this thing we call life, dear Lord. We ask that you guide our hearts and minds, dear Lord, as we go about the will of the people of the county, dear Lord. I ask that you guide us in the way in which you would have us to go. These and other blessings we pray. Amen.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we will open up the floor for public comment. If you would, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Mr. Dines, anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we will close public comment. We do have a new portion of the agenda that we spoke to a couple of months ago, which is a discussion on public comment. That's our opportunity to expand on whatever may have been said or mentioned or brought forward. So going forward, that'll be an addition to our agenda. And approval of minutes. There are no minutes. Community Planning Liaison Officer, Naval Support Facilities, South Potomac, Dahlgren, Mr. Lynch. Online? Okay. Plan review. We have none. That brings us to public hearings. Is there anyone out there with an agenda that's pretty tight or a timeline that's pretty tight, so you'd like to go first?
I can go ahead and kick it off, Mr. Chair. Tonight you're going to hear the department request for CIP projects. We use the following ranking system to rank the projects. If a project is considered to be urgent, we'll rank it between 1 to 2 points. If it's considered to be necessary, that is 3 to 4 points. If it is considered to be needed but not required, 5 to 6. Projects are considered to be desirable, 7 to 8. Projects that are deemed for future consideration is 9 to 10. So the most favorable point score would be a 1 and the least favorable would be a 10 on your ranking system. So if there are no immediate questions, we will continue in this order. First up will be the King George County Public Schools. Second will be the engineering department. Third would be solid waste. Fourth, fire and rescue. Fifth, general properties. Sixth, parks and recreation. And last but not least, information and technology. Mr. Boyd, Dr. Boyd, sorry, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. You will see a much larger list tonight than I've typically had in the past. We've learned a couple lessons in the last year. I won't go over all these projects tonight. I certainly will provide them to you, and I think you guys have them in the spreadsheet so that you can look at them in greater detail later. In doing this last year, it was clear to me that the Board of Supervisors would certainly like to see a longer stretch out of projects over a 5 and 10 year period. So what we did this year is we took a real deep look into the life cycle of a lot of our products, of a lot of our things that we have within the campus, and we really expanded that list out a bit more. We did mark things that were urgent, necessary, and some of the items are obviously further out into the future. If you look down to the bottom of the spreadsheet, you'll even see things that stretch beyond the 5-year timeline and they go into the 10, 15-year timeline. The other thing that we learned last year is that as developers begin to come into King George County, it's very important that we have our capital improvement plan up to date with as many things as we need in the school division, because as they're coming in, looking at ways to alleviate some of the stress that they're putting on the system, they refer specifically to the capital improvement plan. to address some projects that we have in there. So you'll see a much larger plan this year than you've seen in the past. I'll highlight a few of these projects that I think are considered urgent, and I'll take any questions that you guys may have as well. So if you're taking a look at the spreadsheet, the one that I'd first like to mention, and I'd like to mention these in maybe a package order. If you look at item 2, the school board office roof replace, you can skip 3 and 4. We did change those recently on our updated spreadsheet to listing those as necessary, meaning that we don't have to do them next year. However, if you go one item below that, replacing the 1960s fire alarm is listed as urgent. And then item 7 is also listed as urgent, which is to replace the sewer pump at the school board office. So I think we all now know where the school board office is and the age of that building. As we continue to stay in that building, if that's the plan for either the short term or even a longer period of time, there's some objects or some systems in that building that certainly need some love and attention. So the school board office roof replacement, if you take a look at that, the replacement of the roof has not been done in decades, and there are certainly spots where it's leaking through the roof and down into the preschool and down into the school board office. Some areas that pull quite extensively after a large storm. The last time that roof was repaired was 1987, and at this point, there's a lot of dry rot and some areas that need to be replaced. Would you all like me to stop and address any questions that you have about a particular project, or would you like me to just continue through?
I wouldn't mind asking some questions specific to that building.
Okay.
Do you know how long the lifespan of that building is, and if there's any plans to move you out of there?
So we've recently done a feasibility study. If you remember back, we completed the feasibility study for the preschool. The preschool was estimated at $27 million when that feasibility study was done. We then turned around and asked Mosley to do an expanded feasibility study. The expanded feasibility study included using that same property that's behind the old middle school. Behind the old middle school, you would have room for the preschool, a 4th elementary school in the future that would lay right on the foundation of the existing middle school. The 2nd floor of the preschool was designed to be the school board office. That extra cost is $13 million based on Mosley's study. Beyond that, that feasibility study also created an inter-campus traffic pattern which connected all of those buildings, middle school, high school, preschool, 4th elementary school, school board office, so that all of that traffic gets off of that Route 3 206 intersection right there, which is, as we know, is a busy intersection, especially when school's in session. So that's all been worked out through Mosley very tentatively right now. I would say addressing the age of that building is old. It's very much beyond repair. I think one of the items on this study or on this CIP that probably best exemplifies the age of that building is the fire alarm system, which is item 5 there. The fire alarm system looks like something out of the Ghostbusters. It's a room, it's a huge system. It has fuses in it that I don't think you can buy anymore. They're about this big a piece. I don't know if you know anything about that, but it's something that's most certainly obsolete. There's no dialer on the system, meaning that if a fire were to occur, then manually we would have to call the fire department, unlike our other facilities. So that's certainly something that's a safety concern for us right now residing in that building, as well as the 100 and 150 students, preschool students that reside in that building as well, including the Head Start students.
Question for you. You stated that the building was leaking and it was pouring down, I guess, on multiple levels. Has there been any issue with mold? That's what comes to mind when you talk of that.
We've done some mold mitigation over the years, nothing recently, but I can tell you I want to say maybe 2 months ago in the main hallway of the preschool after a large storm, we had probably, I don't know, 10, 15 gallons of water on the floor after a storm. So it's something that we're constantly battling. And then the final item there on the school board office building is to replace the sewer pump. Again, this is something that is continually shutting down. There's really no more Band-Aids that we can put on that system. If you take a look, it's obsolete at this point. It was put in the 1950s, and there's no backup. So there's no alarm. Actually, we know that it's broken when it's overflowing. And that's when our maintenance staff goes out there and begins to take a look at it. I'm reading notes here, and it says that if VDH and EPA came in to look at the sewer pump right now, it's according to our maintenance staff would not pass inspection. And then I'll move on from the school board office projects unless there's any other questions. Items 8 and 9 on that list, again, highlighting just a few that are redundant from past CIPs. The school bus refresh is one that we do annually. We usually try, it used to be 5 or 6 buses. Now it's usually about 4 or 5 buses because of the costs going up annually. What we do is we take a look at service records of our buses. We take a look at the buses that have the highest amount of mileage on them. We cycle those buses out of the fleet, and we replace them with 4 or 5 new buses. All school parking lots, if you take a look at the spreadsheet, I'm not sure if you guys received, we also have some pictures that are available. There's a number of schools right now in the school board office that have a lot of pothole issues. If you peruse Facebook at all, you can certainly see some folks that are concerned about potholes on the school parking lots. So making sure that we just stay on top of that. It's one of those things that just requires a certain level of annual maintenance.
Excuse me, on the parking lot issue, at King George Elementary School and the parent pickup line,
Yes.
is that going to be paved as part of this, or is it just going to be regraded?
We would like to pave that.
Okay.
Yes, you're talking about the cul-de-sac at the end by the playground, correct? Yeah, that would be nice to pave. This time of year, usually coming out of winter, moving into the spring is when that road is usually has the most potholes. So we typically treat that with stone right about this time of year, but paving it would alleviate that concern for an extended period of time. And then I just want to bring your attention to 2 items. Item 11 is to refurbish and renovate the VOTEC building. You guys know right now that in between the middle school and the existing middle school and the current high school, there is a building. At one time, it was a vocational center. It's been closed for a number of years now. It is set up to be an amazing vocational center. It does need certain things. It needs really a facelift as far as we can tell right now. We would like to make sure that we got that building back up into running order and really started to expand our vocational offerings in King George County. If you look around us, Stafford and Spotsy have great vocational programs. Caroline even runs their own vocational program out of Caroline County Public Schools. And then all of the counties down and through the Northern Neck attend the Northern Neck Technical Center, which is an amazing program. We're really kind of stuck on a vocational island or the absence of vocational programs here in King George County. We have a facility. It's set up. It was at one time a great vocational program. It has bay doors. It has shop rooms that are set up to serve vocations. We would really like to begin getting that building back into working condition so that we could start to reintroduce vocational programs in King George County. That's item 11 there.
Question, what are the current options for students to pursue those types of careers?
So we have a number of CTE programs, and actually our CTE programs are growing. If you've seen a lot of the programs in the community, CTE Eats and things of that nature. So within the school right now, we have wood shop, we have HVAC, we have welding, we have horticulture, we have AutoCAD, and then on the other side of the house, we have a number of business and computer tech programs that are available for our students right now. Those all are housed in the existing high school. What we would really like to do is make sure we could get that building up and running. Everyone know what I'm referring to as far as that building is right next to the tennis courts. There's a path, students could walk right to it, and we could really start to expand our offerings to things like auto body, auto tech, culinary arts, cosmetology, all of the other programs that we see around us right now.
may I refer back to number 10?
Yes, sir.
I'm just Walt. May seem sarcastic, but I'm just going to ask it. I mean, we look at the middle school, the old middle school. Is that what we're talking about, or is this the new middle school?
No, this is the new middle school. This was the part of the roof that was not completed with the renovation.
Okay, then it won't be sarcastic.
Sarcastic, okay.
I was going to ask about the old.
Absolutely, yeah. I believe that's scheduled to be leveled sooner than later. Mhm.
Because that was going to be, we're going to spend 700,000 on a roof. We should just look at what it costs to demolish it.
Absolutely.
Okay, understand.
Yes, and then the last one I'll cover, if there's no other questions, is item 24 there, school board office storage facility. And I know the county has some ideas about some storage facilities as well, and maybe this is something that we could work tandem on. Right now, that vocational building has really turned into a storage facility for the school division, and in the absence of any other place to use for storage. So all of our custodial supplies, maintenance supplies, there's even freezers that are in that building right now for cafeteria supplies as well. In order to really work your way through this chess game of trying to figure out how to get that vocational building up and running, we would really need to consider a storage facility down the road in tandem with the county. I know they have the same needs, or just a school board or a school storage facility as well. We've taken a look at some different models for that and gotten some different prices. But again, working those items out of that vocational building so that we can move vocational programs back into it would be our desire. And I can stop there for any questions or any items that I didn't cover. Again, there's a number of items on there. I didn't intend to go over all of them tonight, but did want to put them in the CIP for the reasons I expressed earlier in the presentation.
Not CIP, but to plant a seed. If we move forward with the vocational renovations, I would recommend identifying like the area or region unions or and teaming with them. Mm-hmm. That might help get us material or items that are pertinent and current in that environment today.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that, Mr. Moss. We've been in contact with, I have a lot of connections with the folks that run the Northern Neck Technical Center. They do that quite often, is work with the unions. Really, that's probably the best place to find instructors, folks that are interested in retiring from the profession and going in and teaching students to take over. Yep. So thank you. I appreciate that.
I have two quick questions. One is for re-turfing the high school. When that field is used as a facility rental for district tournaments or any other events, does the income from that go towards any of the maintenance for that facility?
It does. We have to do combing and replacing the rubber pellets and things of that nature annually. We have an annual service plan, and that money is the money for the rentals goes into the athletic fund at the school, and then it's turned around and used for that annual plan.
Okay, and then one more question. I believe it might have been in January, the Board of Supervisors was discussing extra money from the ARPA funds, and they were going to, I think, request a list of things from the school that might be covered under those funds. Are any of these things on this list also on that list?
None of these. We've done some more talking with the Board of Supervisors. The ARPA funds were the county version of ESSER funds for the school division. So we had access to our own ESSER funds. They do expire on September 30th of this year. We have worked in a number of one-time expenses and really tried to bring down our operating budget by using ESSER funds to pay for many of those one-time expenses. However, they're not capital type projects that we can, we don't have that kind of money to cover capital type projects with ESSER funds, if that makes sense.
But is that the same as these ARPA funds, SF funds? I'm not
they both, very
educated in this area.
No worries at all. They both came out of COVID. The ARPA funds were more geared, to my understanding anyways, my novice understanding, geared towards county. ESSER funds were more geared toward the school division. So We did share our one-time expenses and those things with the county as far as ARPA funds. We know that the county has a number of needs. We're really trying to satisfy a number of our needs with ESSER funds, the county version. I mean, the school version. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Board. Next up, Mr. Young, Department of Engineering.
Good afternoon. So I'm Bryce Young, County Engineer. Moving straight into the first project I have on here, the old middle school demolition, as mentioned. And this will just be to demolish and remove the old middle school building to make room for future school buildings. We're still on the scoping with exactly what will be done with the property, but there's talk of designing a full build-out plan to include a new school board office, possibly interconnecting road, preschool, and possibly elementary school, all on that lot. And it's a quite sizable lot, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But that first step is tearing down the existing old middle school. Any questions on that?
So have you done an evaluation of the building itself? It's been years since I've been in that building, but I know that the roof is shot, the mechanical systems are shot, probably the electrical systems are all, gone. But structurally, is it still sound, or is it having issues that aren't apparent?
It does have some structural issues, and in that building there is a newer roof that was built straight over top of a flat roof, and you're not able to access between the two roofs to see just how much mold's in there.
Oh.
And there is hazardous materials present in different places throughout the building.
So you're convinced that it's more economically feasible to just get rid of it, start from scratch, than trying to save any aspects of it?
Correct. And also the way the building is positioned on the lot, it isn't the best layout to allow us to get the most out of our property that we own. And to back up us saying that it should be demolished, we do have studies showing that there are hazardous materials and the soundness of the building isn't quite up to par.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were taking the most economical approach to it, was all. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions with that?
My only question is, if we don't know what we're going to do with the property, what makes demolishing it urgent?
The board indicates that this is a project they want to move forward on. And step one would be getting rid of the building so we can get an idea of how we can lay things out and start working towards the new school.
I would second her thought, though. It would be really nice to see a comprehensive plan put together of what direction both your office, for the county and for the school board, and tie all these pieces together. Because as I go through this list, looking at them, some are dependent upon other actions by other portions of the county. And it the school storage building, I wouldn't want to go build a standalone storage building for them when the county still needs something, So I would really love to see some kind of a comprehensive plan come out saying, this is what we're trying to do and when we're trying to fit all the pieces together.
And we are working on that plan, and it is, right now, we're going through the scoping aspect of it,
Yeah,
figuring out exactly what we need and getting everything together. But knowing what we know about that building it's a liability, and I don't see a reason in keeping it standing
yeah.
personally.
I would tend to agree with you. I don't see a reason for keeping it, but I also am not sure I see the urgency of doing it now, particularly at a cost of, what was it?
And part of the price tag is due to the hazardous materials mitigation you have to do in tearing it down.
All right. I'm just, we're sitting up here trying to make recommendations to the board. And I hear the comment that the board wants to do it. So the board will do whatever they want to do eventually. But, I'm just not, it's been standing there for how long? What would another couple of years do? I don't know. I've heard this story about a plan being put together, but if one's ever been put together, it's never been shared with us. So that's what I'd like to see. That's just me speaking. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No, but I second Mr. Kendrick's comments there, where if there was kind of an overall objective and we could look at it and, say for CIP, okay, we're looking at this phase of the project, so it'll be very well received when you guys finally pull all that together. So, thanks. I have a question, line 2, renovating the existing courthouse. This one.
Yes, moving on to the next slide. Yes, utilizing the old courthouse space and preserving the heritage, efficiently utilizing the space. And this is to begin the engineering and architecture to repurpose the building. Roof replacement, mold mitigation, HVAC replacement, and remodeling, repurposing of general areas to meet the county's needs.
So question, has the county's needs been identified as exactly what that need will be?
Yes. And we are working with a firm to work or establish just what square footage each department needs, how we could organize that within the building at the most cost-effective way.
So you're looking at several things in this building. The administrative portion of the county's needs. Are you folding in things like the school board office and other things? I sometimes get the feeling that we come to this meeting and we see these groupings, and each of these groupings are trying to stand on their own rather than being intertwined and looked at together, which is sort of what we're tasked to do. But I don't see the effort coming out of the groups representing the county and the ones that are actually going to use it, trying to do that folding together. So if it's just to provide extra space to the folks that are currently housed in this building, I would question,
Well,
is that the best way to go?
right now the county is leasing out spaces for some of the departments. This will allow those departments to go away from leasing space into a county-owned space. And if the county is fully staffed to what our needs are and what our future needs will be within the coming years, not long in the future, then all the space will be utilized and needed. We're not trying to plan for next year. We're trying to make a space that we can grow into within the next 5 years or so.
The old courthouse, is it empty now?
Not yet, but it will be. We should be finishing up the new courthouse in, I believe, May.
All right. So that's the majority of that building. You're not going to let it sit vacant for 5 years. You're going to want to get in, do your rehabilitation to it, and move new people into it a lot quicker than that. So you're looking like year and a half, 2 years max. So, I mean, in your write-ups, have you included all the leased space that you're going to be able to get out of by using that building?
Are you asking, have we spec'd out the?
So you just made the comment that the county's currently leasing space.
Yes.
And by renovating the old courthouse, you would be able to avoid those leases and save money for the county. Sounds like a great idea. What are those leases? If you're asking us to try to evaluate how important this is, that would be a nice piece to know. Now, we're not sitting here trying to nitpick estimates or anything, but you know, it's nice to understand the urgency of it by getting out of a lease where we're basically wasting money to lease it by renovating that building. Then I probably wouldn't have a comment about, have you considered some of the other sections of the county's needs, whether they're being addressed with this building or not?
There has been a space needs analysis carried out. And based on that, that's how we determine how much space each county or each department needs now and shortly into the future. And also, as far as leased spaces, my office is a leased space, IT is a leased space, and I believe there's a couple of other offices around that are as well leased spaces. So that would allow us to move here into more of an admin complex versus leaving that building.
Not to beat a dead horse, but it would be nice if we knew all that kind of stuff as we're evaluating.
Yeah, I could definitely say that I would prioritize this if I knew that this space was going to be, that those leased offices would have priority moving into this space rather than just expanding, you know, buildings that we're doing okay with where we're at. Does that make sense? I would just prioritize it differently if I knew there was going to be a cost savings.
My question is, with the new building, was not some of these needed spaces included in the, I guess, the square footage
Of the new
building? Right, correct.
The new courthouse will be for the courts and all of their activities. This would just be a renovating, repurposing for county administrator or administration and supporting services of the county.
So again, as part of your presentation to us, encouraging us to rate it very high on the needs of the county, how many of your lease spaces will you be getting out of?
I know at least one lease space, if not more.
So that goes back to the comment I heard earlier. I'd be more inclined to rate it high if I knew we were getting out of certain spaces.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I want to chime in to help Bryce. Bryce was not here when the new courthouse plans were originally made. At one time, they were looking at a 65,000 square foot building, and they would have moved IT and a few other offices there. But because of cost, they cut it down to 50,000 square feet. So that's when the old courthouse, once they finished, became a viable location to move some of the staff. And another thing is the election, our registrar, she has strict guidelines where she was trying to rent space to move out of this building so she could take care of her needs. And with the voting that people do now, early voting, and they mail in votes early, but the board said no, just stay in this building. So with the offices that need to be staffed at a much higher rate, like planning. They were hoping to move into her space, as that was a nice area they could move to and fit more of their staff. But as it is right now, everybody's on top of each other for the most part. So that's why the courthouse, the old courthouse, was a viable option that they were looking at.
So I'm aware that the courthouse was downsized in order to get it to a dollar figure that was acceptable. All right. I'm just, we're being asked to evaluate these projects and to offer a recommendation, but we're not being given, and I'm sorry, I should be saying this in general, we're not being given the kind of information to allow us to make that kind of evaluation. No offense, but you're basically saying, trust me, we'll put the most important stuff into it. And I've fooled with public works kind of functions for a long time. And I know that's not always the way it works out. Certain voices are louder than others. Some people get the things they would like to have rather than what's really needed. So, you know.
Would you like me to supply y'all with the space needs assessment?
If you've got one, that would be nice.
We have one.
If you could tell me what you're gonna want to, if you haven't already done it, you're gonna want to pay a consultant to do a space study for you and to design the building to meet the needs of those people that are going into it, those functions that are going into it. If you have that, that would be nice if you just shared it with us.
Yeah, we do have a space needs assessment, and this funds is also for the architecture and engineering as well. I'm sorry if I didn't speak that to light. So we can.
And I appreciate that, but you're giving that firm some guidelines, you know, a program to work towards.
Correct.
If you shared that same program with us, we might be more inclined to say, oh yeah, this is going to the top of the list. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be somewhere near the top of the list anyway, because you're not going to let that amount of square footage just sit there and get old and deteriorate. But, you know, it would be nice if some of that information was shared with us.
All right, I can get that information to you. Any other comments on? Oh, okay. New preschool. This has already been mentioned several times by myself and Dr. Boyd. And you'll notice there's no dollar figure with this yet because we are still working on scoping of exactly what we need. So we're waiting on direction from the board to figure that out exactly. This is just on there until we get that dollar amount.
So do you already have in the budget the necessary funds to scope it, do the evaluation, understand what the project will be, to provide an overall dollar figure?
Trying to remember how this budget was laid out.
Because that's what I'm doing, just what you're doing now. I'm thinking about last year. I'm thinking about CIP.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember for the preschool, there was an ask for millions. And when we had the discussion, we realized that actually the ask wasn't for the preschool. It was for the scoping, the engineering evaluations, maybe some sketches on elevations. So I was just wondering if that budget was being executed now, or is it that we can anticipate next year another request for a budget to support scoping, engineering?
Anticipate next year having an engineering budget Right now, this is more on the scoping and assessment of what will be done, overall master plan and such.
Yeah, I just remember that we set aside about 500,000 for that last year.
I'm trying to recall. Yeah. Yeah, I can get back to you on that. I don't recall exactly what we did last year.
Well, I mean, that's just what came from our discussion here. It could have been when it went to the Board of Supervisors, the numbers changed or things got realigned. That's all
Yeah.
highly probable. I'm just, in my mind, I remember this conversation specifically. So I was just wondering about the usage of that budget that was set aside last year.
So-
Yeah, things did get pushed around last year. I do remember that.
So maybe I've been too harsh about complaining and criticizing, but I guess my point is that, like I can look at the renovation of the existing courthouse and I see in the 24-25 budget, you're asking for 185,000. I just assumed that was for the design of it.
Mm-hmm.
Scoping, design, getting it, ready to start construction, because you're asking for 2.8 million in the following year, 25-26, I assume, to actually do the work. All right. So I guess what I'm sort of suggesting to everybody is that if you're going to put in a request, it'd be nice if you put some meat into the request so that we understand what you're doing, how it fits into a larger plan, and that you've thought about things like, is there, does it meet the highest needs that the county has? I was probably a little harsh on you, and I apologize for that. But that's the kind of information I'm looking for, because just to say, give me 3 million so that we could renovate the old court building, yeah, it's probably not a bad number, like just reaching up in the air and pulling a number out of the sky, but you're not giving us anything to really evaluate. It really does come down to, trust me. And that's what I see at a lot of these. I'm sorry the school representative has left, because I get his point about putting a lot of things on the list of to-dos so that, contractors, when they get ready to do proffers, they have an opportunity to pick something off of that and can legally offer a proffer for it. I get that, and I'm fine with that. But, my same comment would probably go to him is, I don't really understand where the school board is trying to go, as I don't understand exactly where your office is trying to go with the renovation of the old courthouse building. So a little bit more information. Give us what little you can give us now, because we're on a timeline for making a recommendation to the county. So I'm not asking you to go off and do any work you haven't already done, but if you got anything you can share with us, it would be nice. But
Yeah, and
next year, maybe just keep this in mind.
in the CIP write-up, further than the spreadsheet, the write-up for the individual project, new preschool, to read it and give you a little bit more idea what has been done. The existing preschool facility is obsolete and inadequate. Studies and evaluations are currently underway regarding the new preschool to be constructed on county-owned property located on the site of the old middle school. The old middle school will be demolished as part of this project, which was, the demolition was a separate line item. As we before talked about, the 47-acre parcel connects to the existing middle school complex. Options include a new preschool facility and a new combination preschool and school administration building. Future projects on this parcel may include a 4th elementary school and connecting road to the existing middle school site. A recently completed program study recommends an approximately 40,000 square foot new preschool facility. Prior to finalizing cost and a project timeline, the Board of Supervisors and School Board will need to agree on a project scope of work.
I appreciate that. But take for an instance, from my point of view, I read that in your write-up. I hear you say it to me. And then I look at the list from the King George School request, and it's got 6, 7 projects to do considerable amount of repair and renovation to the old elementary school, which is where the preschool is currently housed and the school board is currently housed. So, I mean, you know, if I understood the plan, I could get behind the idea of throwing some money at the old elementary school to buy time for the new preschool and another building for the school board to sit in. You know, it would make sense to me. But when they're given to me the way they're given to me, it's just like, well, let's spend a whole bunch of money on the old elementary school, which I think we all sort of think probably should be torn down or converted somehow. But at the same time, I'd love to see a new preschool built for the county, you know, but I'm not seeing that intermeshing. That's not necessarily your responsibility to do. But so if you could give us whatever you've got already in hand, don't go trying to create anything new, I would personally appreciate it. All right, thank you.
I would just give some food for thought where we are now with the current preschool and hosting the administrative functions of the school board in the same building. I think it's probably out of necessity, common sense, whatever. When we go forward, is that really a requirement to have them co-located under the same roof? That's just food for thought. I'm not asking for an answer, just something to consider, because I think I heard in your narrative that it would be, again, a combined facility. And I understand that what we have now is probably a lot of convenience, made sense based on what we had available, but going forward, might be that it's still logical to co-locate, but probably not. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, yeah, have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Next up is Mr. Newchuk, Solid Waste and Recycling.
Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. We're requesting a replacement of the recycling compactor and a 3-phase electrical upgrade at the Sealston Convenience Center. The recycling compactor at the Sealston Convenience Center needs to be replaced. It's undersized, underpowered, and over 20 years old. Its newer counterpart at the Perkins Center has already had its motor and ram cylinder replaced in the last 2 years. This unit is showing similar signs of mechanical fatigue. Due to being underpowered, it cannot meet the 2-ton recycling minimum for the transfer station, and we're paying to take undersized loads there. There's a look at it. It's been refurbished at least once in the past. Some of the identifying information was painted over. We had somebody look at it to find out the feasibility of a rebuild in place. He estimated the age of closer to 30 years. His recommendation was palliative care to stretch it out as long as you need it, but then to replace it. He said there is no rebuild in place for this machine. There's another view of the end. It's got an external motor, which is a good thing, which does make motor replacement easier. We do have a replacement motor on standby because the 2 units use the same motor. 3-phase power lines are located 360 and 400 feet from the compactor pad. So a power upgrade is in the request. We're looking at just a couple spans. There was we thought a near line, but that one was not feasible. A new compactor will last over a decade, and that's well over a decade. Allow the county to better comply with the state mandated recycling requirements. We're no longer rural according to DEQ's mandate for recycling, so we bumped up to the 25% rate. So we're really trying to get any material we can get. And a new compactor will reduce maintenance costs and avoid possible service outages. And also one of the good things is, we're negotiating with Waste Management for an expansion of the Perkins Corner Center, which is a separate issue. But this compactor as it is right now has incompatible containers with our other trash compactors. And so the new compactor will be compatible with the 3 existing trash compactors, as well as any future compactor containers utilized at that site. And the addition of 3-phase power, getting it there will also make future site upgrades possible. So, down the road, if we decide we want to stop using a backhoe to compact open top 40 yarders, you'll have power there if you want to go to a full compactor center, which is something in the future you will do. Do y'all have any questions?
Sir, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Newchuck. Next up is Chief Moody, Fire and Rescue and Emergency Services.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is David Moody. I'm the County Fire and Rescue Chief. I think most of y'all know me. So we just have 3 requests this year. That is our typical ambulance replacement program. I've just got a few slides that I'll navigate through. So, as you may be aware, we have 7 ambulances in our fleet. We have no emergency room, no hospital in King George County. So all of our calls, we have to transport them outside of the county. Those transports typically take place between 3 locations, that being Mary Washington Hospital, Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center, and also Charles Regional in La Plata, Maryland. We also transport to some of the standalone ERs. Every now and then we go to Stafford Hospital up near the courthouse area. But everything we do when it comes to EMS and transportation goes outside of our county. Do want to point out that we're between all 7 units, we typically accumulate about 200,000 miles per year. These units run on average about 8 trips daily to the hospital. So it's, the county's growing. We're seeing that pick up. Some of our more frequent places that we are at daily is certainly the nursing home at Heritage Hall. Certainly the standalone, these urgent cares. A lot of people think the urgent cares actually takes volume and business away from us, and it actually, from an EMS perspective, adds volume, because they call 911, and we as 911 and EMS have to go to the urgent cares and take care of a higher priority patient that they deem that they can't handle. It's urgent care, not emergency care. So if a patient fits outside of that protocol, they get on the phone just like any other person in the public and call 911. And so that has added a strain in a volume to our system that years ago we didn't have. My goal in vision is, with these 7 ambulances, my goal is to not come to this commission and not come to the Board of Supervisors and say, we need to replace 5 at a time. You can see the price tag. Before COVID, they were $100,000 less than what you're seeing today. Okay. Is it a better ambulance before COVID? No. It's just everything has magically went up. Raw materials, labor, and that goes from the same way when you go to the grocery store. So we're looking at close to $350,000. We were looking at a 36-month lead time. Mr. Myers, we've had a lot of candid conversations about truck chassis. At one time, we couldn't find any for 2 years. They're all taken up. Dodge Ram is the preferred chassis. We have two choices. You have the Ford and you have the Dodge Ram. Pretty much we're splitting hairs in cost. The 1 year the Ford is about the same price. 1 year the Ram's a little cheaper by $1,000. 1 year the Ford's a little cheaper by $1,000. But from a maintenance standpoint, we're having better luck with the Dodge Ram chassis. Now, where I would like to go in the future is something called a remount and rechassis. And that is we take the box off the ambulance, we redo it, we put it on a new truck chassis, and you save money. And about how much money you save is roughly about $80,000 on average. So that's the vision. But we got a few more units, two more units we have to replace before we get to that. The good thing about ambulances right now is that it has went from a 36-month lead time to about a 24-month. So when you make your recommendation, I come back to the Board of Supervisors, and if the Board of Supervisors elects to fund one unit, from the time we do the encumber the money, appropriate the funds, authorize the purchase, sign the agreement, 2 years from the time we get it and put it in service in King George. So we have to anticipate that. There's more planning that's involved when we look at replacing these critical units. I'll say this. I know it's a little cliche, but anytime I talk to anybody from the public, nobody calls 911 and says, is your emergency vehicles, are they all operating right? Are they well equipped? Are the ambulances not in the shop? Somebody's having a heart attack. Nobody ever does that. So we have to have enough backup. We can't call Enterprise Rental, for example, and say, hey, 4 of our units are in the shop for all different reasons. They're all waiting on parts. I need to rent an ambulance for a week. It just doesn't work that way. So we have to have some planning and some redundancy into that process. Get my little laser pointer out. You can see this is the calls. All these red dots are calls that were populated that we responded to in 2022. It's 4,290 in total. The reason why I wanted to point this map out is here's Company 1, and all the yellow is its primary first due area. And so the county being roughly about 185 square miles, Company 1 covers 113 in its first due coverage. And it covers all the way from Route 3 at Stafford County line all the way to Route 3 at Westmoreland County line. So it's a pretty large, significant area. Now, my goal is sometime down the road in the future is we need to break this up, and we need to build a Shiloh fire station, a Company 4. Doesn't have to be a very big station, but it does need to be able to reduce the response time. This is 2023 data. And you can see this is what my vision of this is what the Company 4 first due district would be, and then this would be Company 1. So essentially at the Route 3 and 301 intersection, everything east to that would be all up into Company 4 and then about halfway up to Dahlgren. 808 incidences last year in that district. So everything we do in emergency services and fire and EMS, our biggest commodity is time. And time makes a difference whether you need an ambulance or whether you need a hearse, or whether you need a fire truck full of water or whether you need a bucket full of water. Okay, so anyway, that's ties into the need for the facilities and request number 2. Go ahead and.
One question, were those all ambulance calls?
No, those were fire and EMS.
Okay, they were both.
Combination, yes. And
Okay.
we do have some breakdown. I would say, Mr. Myers, on probably the percentage of breakdown between those other calls, that would be probably about 75 to 80% emergency medical. Now, emergency medical in that classification is also motor vehicle crashes. We're running anywhere between, I think we're running close to 1,500 motor vehicle crashes a year, all throughout the county. So those are, and I say that they're in the EMS classification, but they can require a whole lot other specialty resources, such as extrication, vehicle fluids, so on and so forth.
Okay. And one other question, well, a couple other questions. Your last ambulance that you received when? How?
We have received, so when we had 2 years that were on separate purchases, and the chassis came available roughly about the same time. So there was only a separation from delivery, I think like 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, so one was very delayed and one was delayed.
And they were what year allocations? Do you remember?
FY 21.
21, 22.
Yeah.
And you received them when? This year or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And how many?
We have one under that the agreement is supposed to be signed this week, and that's from last CIP.
Last CIP.
Last
Okay.
CIP.
And you'll see that ambulance probably
2 years from now.
2 years from now.
Yes.
Okay. So at this point, it would be best if we ordered probably 2, knowing that you have a couple more years, you're going to get funding, because you got an average mileage on your units now on the ambulances, or?
Yes, and I think it should be listed in your report. When I put these sheets together, and I usually take the mileage of that day when I put it together.
Okay.
So
I think it's roughly like 30,000. If you said 200,000 between the 7, so that averages out to be about 30,000.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're that's about average per year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
30,000 a year. Okay.
Yeah.
I know we had some aging.
Yes.
We've been stretching it.
We've been stretching it, and we had 1 year we skipped.
Right.
So when we skipped that year, well, you're pushing them out. And I'll tell you, these units, they get run hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are a heavy duty commercial unit, and they get run hard.
It's a heavy unit.
It's a heavy unit. It's a heavy unit. And, I certainly can stand here and say that, we're definitely good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and certainly aware of what the, of keeping them maintained, keeping a good preventive maintenance program in place. All that is very important, because they're a lot of money, and they're a critical asset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have an ambulance question as well before we go on to the last line item there. So you said we have 7 right now. If you have your crystal ball broken out, when are we going to need more units? When are we going to need to go beyond 7?
It's really just going to depend on county growth and call demand.
Well, if we got a deal for you, I mean, yeah. But I think along the lines of Mr. Myers, where it might be time to consider, that one-upping, based on what staff says here of what the potential growth is, and knowing what the delay is, and then having that strategic downrange vision where, we might have to start increasing once every 5 or 10 years. So it might be worth to look down the road and kind of put a marker in.
Yeah, I would, and I appreciate the, certainly the thoughts and normally I'm not one to turn down any equipment or anything. But I do think, with the two that we received and with the units we had, we had one fairly newer unit before then. We have one that's in the planning process. I think a chassis is available. That's a key portion on that, because sometimes we wait and the factories are like, no chassis.
Yeah.
Can't get them for you.
Ooh.
I think we have a chassis for that one that will speed up, even though I am worst case scenario anticipating the 2-year mark. If we got one approved in this cycle for this year we're looking at tonight, I think that positions us in a pretty well spot with our ambulances. It's not to say that down the road, if we're seeing 10-20% increase in EMS calls, we're seeing some other, maybe some unfortunate high dollar mechanical issues, that we don't look at maybe having to double up 1 year.
But we certainly know that at some point, if the fire and rescue facilities is approved, you're going to need additional trucks, I would imagine, to equip that facility. Is that not correct?
And I was just, yes, sir, Mr. Williams. One of the things I was just looking at is right now, I think we have 4 units that are over 100,000 miles. So just if you take that and that's counting the two new ones. So we're accumulating miles on them, pretty quickly. I would like to get 300,000 out of one of these things, and I know that's pushing it because it's a lot. Like Mr. Meyer said, he's got certainly some expertise in this area, but it's a lot it's hauling around all the time. It's not temporary, it's attached to the frame, and it gets run hard. But we will, to your point, Mr. Williams, we will need, we're going to have to bolster up our staff. And that's where I think our most critical point, and I know we're here talking about capital items, but our operational and human capital item is probably our most weakest link that we have right now. And that's something that, I'll certainly be having some more robust conversations with the Board of Supervisors on. So.
I was going to ask you the same thing about whether or not this replacement is just keeping us where we're at, or if we are projecting for the growth that I think we all know is coming to the county. And I know that there's a project that hasn't broken ground yet off of Owens. It's supposed to be a medical type facility. Is that also going to contribute to additional calls? I know this is not something that you can play catch up on. If the lead time changes from 2 years to 3 years again, we do not want the embarrassment of stuff breaking down when there's a dire need for your services. So I would support not letting us get behind. I'd rather get ahead.
Yeah, and I think I can't agree more. Again, nobody's going to say, well, you brought all this stuff in the county and you failed to prepare. I mean, that's you're the government. You're supposed to be prepared. That's our job, and that's what people expect of us. To your point, the Pyramid Healthcare, the substance abuse facility. That's going to be 100-bed inpatient facility. I don't know what that's going to do. I've called the company. I've called their company my colleague in Newport News. They have a facility in Newport News, and it's a little larger in size than what. And they said, well, yeah, we get calls there, but it's not like overwhelming. I never really got any firm numbers. And what may not be overwhelming to Newport News with 500 personnel in their fire and rescue department might be very overwhelming to King George County. So I'm cognizant of that. And it's a good question. I'm working right now with the Board of Supervisors on replacing our existing Company 2 station. That's on Dahlgren Road. I think you all know where that is. We have land. I've been working on that project since 2010. And in 14 years, just up to last year, we didn't have any land. We have land now. We have 3 acres between Four Seasons Daycare and Oakland Baptist Church, right there on the corner. A prime strategic lot. Nice, flat and level. You don't find a whole lot of that in Dahlgren anyway. That's not wetlands. And we got that at a good price, was able to work that out with the church and leadership. And that's going to be the biggest need we have to service the growth in Dahlgren and prepare. That's probably one of our biggest needs, that and the personnel. Ambulances, I think if we could get one funded this year, I think we're in a good position. If the decision is made by the recommendation, I don't think the recommendation is going to come from this body, but if the board said, hey, we need to strap down, we need to, implement, we can't afford an ambulance this year. Then I think that puts us in a position where we could be a little bit in trouble, because now we're skipping a year. And when we skip a year, you're skipping a 2-year process. Again, the agreement we have for this year hasn't even been signed. And that was me here talking to you about it last year.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a year right there, gone. And it's very feasible that I could be here saying, hey, we're, next year we're getting ready to sign the agreement for this year. I hope not, but that's just where we're at.
Yeah, I know we're not getting to the ladder truck thing yet, but that point there about the facility on Dahlgren Road and moving to something in a more strategic location, that too ties into Mr. Kendrick's point of the overall strategic vision. I mean, I know that last year we had General Properties, they needed a building. There's a statement in here that the school board needs a storage location. So I'm seeing the potential for reuse, right? Applying it to our needs that are in front of us today, and having that strategic vision, understanding it, from this board's perspective would definitely help.
And just another.
Sorry, the derailment.
No, that's fine. That's all certainly great points. And one of the things I'll talk about as far as bridging some of the needs, when we talk about capital infrastructure such as facilities, is the Dahlgren station. Our plan is that there will be some working space for the sheriff's office. So as you may know, there's a deputy. The sheriff's office always has a deputy assigned to Dahlgren, to the Dahlgren district. And that, that person oftentimes, needs, instead of running all the way back here to the office here on Route 3, oftentimes they could do something, in a different location and stay into Dahlgren. So I've been working with Sheriff Dempsey when he was a sheriff, now Sheriff Giles, and that is still the planned approach. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to turn into a remote sheriff's office, but there will be some planned space where a deputy can come in and do some work if he or she needed. So, and the station would be planned for an apparatus bay that would handle and to station a ladder truck. That's the other, because the two have to bridge together.
At the vacated facility, if we build a new one, the ladder truck would be at the.
It would be at the new station in
New
Dahlgren.
station, yes.
Yes. But right now we don't have room for it. It's no question that this is just a heat signature map. You can see some of the hot spots. Most of our facilities where when you're looking at fire station planning, you try to put them in the areas of where you're getting the most call density. And you can see here's company 1. This is our most call density around here. And then company 2, most of your call density up in Dahlgren, and then certainly other areas around the county. And here's company 3, and this is in Fairview Beach. So this is company 1. This is 6 of our 7 ambulances. And we just did that for a little photo op from our drone. We do have a plan when it comes to replacing apparatus. And so typically for our fire engines, we try to get at minimum 20 years out of a fire engine, okay? Sometimes we can stretch it to 25. Our reserve engine's a 1995, and it's still effective. We're still using it. We have to certainly patch it up and have a good, robust maintenance program on it to keep it going. But I mentioned that because, fire trucks, it costs a lot of money, but you got them around for 20 to 30 years. So it's a very long-term investment. Most time firefighters will start the job, and some of them, depending when they were hired and when you got the truck, they can spend their whole career on the same truck before you have to get rid of it. Our ambulances we typically try to get 7 years before anything major happens to those. And right now we actually have a fire engine that's under construction, and that is we're going to be replacing our engine 3, and that is a 1998. That's at Fairview Beach at Company 3. And then what we're going to do is put the engine 1, that's a 2013. We're going to move that to Company 3 because we're going to try to get we're going to try to preserve it for longer and put it at a little bit of a slower station in order to keep that truck around a little bit longer. Engine 1 is our busiest fire pumper, and so kind of strategically rotating them sometimes can be a benefit. But I want to show this because there is a plan. It's not, hey, do we think we're just going to come up and come before the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors and say, hey, we need a new truck, and this is why we need it. So there is a replacement plan to replace things throughout our fleet. This is Company 2. This is a station that we're looking to replace. This opened in 1989. You can see it kind of backs up to the swamp there in the creek. One of the interesting points about this station is you couldn't build the same station there today. You got to have a 100-foot setback requirement for the wetland for the Chesapeake Bay Act, as you ladies and gentlemen fully know. You have VDOT turn entrances. You got stormwater retention ponds and best management practices. And by the time you do all that, you couldn't have a facility there. So I say that because oftentimes the question has come up about, well, won't you just add on to what you have? You can't change the footprint on it. So this is just some pictures of the day room. Essentially, it's a kitchen and a day room and office area all on that one side. The station was never built for a 24/7 operation. It was never built. It was mainly a volunteer operation. It was designed around where people that worked on the base, that they could leave the base when a call went out, they could drive to the station, get a truck, and then bring it back. That was back when you had about 200-300 calls a year. Now we're at over 4,000 a year. So you have to have people at the stations available to respond at the time of the alarm. And that's really what the citizens have just come to expect. Our firefighters, there's no eating area. So the training room is the same room as a TV room, which is the same room that they put their supper and their meal in their lap and they have to eat out of. The bunk room is upstairs. It's an old storage room. We had to knock a window out in order to have a secondary means of egress and turned it into a makeshift bunk room. But all these were temporary stints just so we could serve the public. There's very little space between the walls and the walk areas of the engine. There's some OSHA requirements coming out that are saying you got to have so much space between the rear of a truck and the wall and on the sides. A lot of our stations, Company 2 and Company 3, we're probably not going to meet those requirements. This is Station 2. This is where we keep the brush truck because we can't keep everything at the fire station. So depending on the call, you have to drive down the road, get the other vehicles. That's just some of the inside pictures of that. That's Company 3. That's in Fairview Beach. I think everybody knows where that is. So this is the lot, kind of the preliminary plan that we're looking at for the new land at Company 2. This is the land between Oakland Baptist Church and Four Seasons Daycare. This is kind of just a draft rendering of the Company 4 Shiloh site. So this is right beside the bus garage on Route 301. You can see the county is planning for a future industrial park that would go back behind the area of the station, and this would be the station right here. Before we start seriously planning for that station, we need to take care of the Dahlgren station first. So moving on to the aerial ladder truck, I will state that I noted a typo or an omission that was not in the spreadsheet. I'm not sure if you have this sheet in front of you or not, but it says a ladder truck costs $150,000. If you could get it for $150,000, you got a heck of a.
That was going to be my question.
That was going to be okay. Well, I noticed that tonight. The $150,000 is a real number, but that's for equipment on the truck. So the ladder truck, we have gotten a quote and a proposal. Our apparatus design committee has worked diligently this past year to look at specifications. We're looking right at 2.4 million and some change. So that's why I put 2.5. The lead time is what I almost fell out of my chair about. It was 1,040 days, which is 3.9 years. And they also, they also leave in some language regarding, hey, if something costs more than 10% a certain component, then they can come back to you as a customer and basically say, hey, we're passing on the cost. You either want it or you don't, So we have a need for this. One of the challenges that we have in our department is that we do not have a ladder truck. And when it comes to ladder truck services, we have one primary department that typically runs with us, and that's Naval District Washington Company 28, right here on the Dahlgren base. However, I'll give you an example. That ladder truck's been out of service for the past month and may not come back for another 2 or 3 months. So, there's no ladder truck in the immediate vicinity of King George County. So you may ask, what happens if we have a hotel catch on fire or a set of garden apartments and we have people hanging out three-story and 4-story windows? And the answer is that we'll do the best we can. And we'll call other ladder trucks, but those ladder trucks may be available or they may not be available. And if they are available, they'll be coming from outside of the county at quite a distance. So as our county grows, as we talk about data centers and we talk about, resort community developments and things with higher densities and taller structures, the need for a aerial ladder truck is going to be ever more important, because we have a duty to be able to have the equipment to get people out of danger, and at least certainly try our best when an event like that happens. So I will say, as far as the funding, this is public information, so I'm certainly able to mention it. That with the proffers that were agreed upon on the Amazon, we were able to negotiate up to $2 million that they would provide for the purpose of a aerial ladder truck. Okay, so there's a substantial chunk of the cost of that truck that would be provided. Now, obviously, there's a lot that's unfolding with that project, and so we don't have the money today. That money would not be available until the first data center opened up and a certificate of occupancy was provided. So here's the challenge. We need to have that ladder truck before the data centers open up. We don't need to have the ladder truck have the money and say, okay, now we can order a ladder truck. And then the company says, okay, it'll be 4 years. And then we got to equip it. We got to train people. We got to maybe hire people, et cetera. So it all has to come together, and you have to have a building to put it in. So with that, I'll stop, and I will answer any questions. Here's just some different pictures of different ladder trucks. That's a straight aerial stick on the right. That's a platform truck on the bottom. Here's some of the different heights that you're looking at when you're rescuing people. Here's a 4-story set of garden apartments that we typically see like in Dahlgren area. There's a picture how from the tip of the ladder, et cetera. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So my question is that ladder truck on this list?
It is on this list.
Is it wrapped up in?
It's supposed to be, it was missing the $2.5 million price tag. However, I'm not sure if that was omitted for the purpose of the proffer or not. I put it in my sheet because I think from a planning perspective, it needs to be in there.
Okay, so you're saying it's 2.4 million plus
5 million.
2.5 million plus
150,000.
150,000. Now, my only question is the lead time on the apparatus the same as the truck? Would we be able to order the truck and then the additional apparatus, does that have the same lead time, or can we push that?
Are you referring to the equipment that would go on the truck? The equipment would not be nowhere near the lead time. Equipment would 3 months.
So we could order the truck and then push that additional cost down the road.
Right. Yes.
Chief, I certainly appreciate the amount of effort you put into your presentation every year, and I applaud you for looking forward. Undoubtedly, the county is going to continue to grow. That's what everybody in the government wants to see happen to some degree, at least in a controlled fashion. I would certainly support you in trying to get ahead of the game by some increased request if not this year, in the future years. So one of these days, me or somebody on my behalf may be calling for your services. So I'd like to have the thought that they might be there. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kim. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is Mr. Muncy with the General Properties.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Coming to you requesting for the board an additional 1.5 million for the general properties building that we propose to build. Currently, right now, we're leasing a building out at Bloomsbury Road. We've entered into, or getting ready to enter into, another 1-year lease. It was a 3-year lease, but now the owner is letting us do 1 year, for the next 3 years, depending on where we go with this building. Right now, we've had a building analysis, needs analysis done on of that building, and the prices we asked, Wiley Wilson did the analysis, and the prices came in, we asked them to do like a low and a high. The low came in at like 1.3. The high was like 2.8, almost 3 million. We also asked the contractor that's doing the courthouse right now to give us a bid, and they gave us a price also, and that was over 3 million. So the money that we have right now, that in the current CIP, is like right around like 475. So that's why I've come to you to, to ask for the additional, because we're thinking, I don't think it's going to be above 2, but I'd rather have it and not need it than have to come back to the board or to y'all to ask for it.
By chance, would you happen to know what we pay annually to lease your current facility?
It's
Round number is good.
30,000. 30,000 a year.
And how long have we been, I know you say we're doing annually now, but it was on the 3, how many 3-year leases have we?
We're coming up to, this is the end of the first 3 years.
Okay.
Of the lease. So we're getting ready to enter to another 1 year. And he's agreed to, do a year by year.
I got that part, but have we had, so we had 3 years. So did we have a 3-year prior to that 3 year?
No, sir.
Okay, got it. Okay.
This is the first 3. The current building we have right now is roughly about the size that we're looking at replacing. The building we have right now is a little under 4,000 square feet. I proposed, like I said, I wanted, a building that's 40 by 100. Currently, I mean, a lot of the materials I have plans and operation manuals that are currently stored in the old middle school. And these are blueprints that are for all the existing county buildings. And they are part of general property, so they will also be stored in the building that, the new building. The current building doesn't have enough room to put it in. So, just another thought. We're definitely lacking for storage here in the county.
All right. That's roughly a 50-year break-even point. Going forward with CIP, understand just me to you with that break-even point. I'd have a plan B. Different facility, larger, that can facilitate your needs, but potentially under lease until the budget might come through this year, but I would just recommend a plan B.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Muncy. Next up, Mr. Clark, Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Somewhere he's going to hit the slideshow button. All right, so Parks and Recreation's CIP process goes a little bit differently than every other department because we have an advisory committee and we also survey the public to help drive our projects. First couple of years I was with the county, I had a lot of really good ideas that I stood in front of you with and didn't have data or input from my neighbors. Now we do. So just recently, we just completed the Barnesfield Field A lighting upgrade. So that we went from halide bulbs to LEDs. I turned them on Saturday while we were out there and it was raining we were doing an Eagle Scout project and they're nice. They turned out really nice. The tennis center obviously reopened and the Sedell Parks Junior Park picnic shelter. We are finishing up ARPA. I think both these were actually ARPA funds, capital improvement equipment upgrades and safety and security updates, fence additions, new soccer goals, batting cages, things like that are bigger than what NEF is really is operating budget, but sometimes aren't really capital, but combined together they were. In RFP, our negotiations right now are the lighting for the 2 of the fields at Sealston sports complex for soccer, the master plan for Wayside and Barnesfield, and then the playground for Barnesfield, that replacement. And then it was approved and everything was issued in the fall for the Sealston Sports Complex roadway repair. But we ended up too late in the season, so Finley will be back soon, I guess, if the weather continues to be 70 degrees, and they will repave that road, so it will be a benefit both to us and to the school. So as I said, this plan's developed. We use our 2022 needs assessment, which I had forwarded on. I believe you all received it, as well as the tourism strategic plan. Between our staff, last year's CIP, and anything else we see, we kind of develop an initial list of projects. This year, I think we put 14 on the web to review from the citizens. The community gave input. I used the staff survey. We also just surveyed the staff this year for the first time. So using both of those surveys, compiled the listing, I cut the list to 10. The advisory committee then met and looked at the draft CIP that I had prepared. They rearranged a couple things, that we moved one item off the list, and that's how we got to the item that you have, the plan that you have today. So just a reminder of the top needs from 2022, and I think they still stand firm today, that people want to be outside doing outdoor activities, and that's really where the push is, natural, walking trails, those kind of things. So number one for us this year, though, came up very high. 25% of the citizens who responded to our survey had recreation center as their number one priority. Clearly, this is not something we're doing tomorrow. It still sits in the 5-year spot for us. But the Quonset hut, the original gym behind the old elementary school, obviously if the old elementary school is not going to be a preschool anymore, there's probably a chance that that building may not be there either. And it is very old. If you have children and have been to birthday parties there, if you went to birthday parties there a decade ago, you can imagine that it hasn't gotten much better. So that's one of the things we have. We also have programs in the cafeteria there at the old school board building. And it would give us a chance. Actually, during this winter, many nights we have 7 facilities operating. We can have, by being in a combined rec center, we would be able to cut down on some of that. We would still need schools. There's no way we could build a building big enough, but I don't think King George needs a building big enough to house our entire basketball and indoor soccer program. So we would still need to use school facilities, but it would give us an option. And in addition, we could use it for sports tourism. We could do AAU basketball tournaments, or if we put an indoor track in it, host indoor track meets, things like that. But that would all be things we'd have to figure out when we get to it. Barnesfield and Wayside Parks, though, that expansion, hopefully that RFP will go out in the next month or so. Hopefully we've had a couple staffing changes upstairs, but that should help us, and it will help us then design what we're going to do for the rest of both not only the 7 acres we still hold at Wayside, but also the new 166 acres that's behind Barnesfield Park. I actually last week spoke to the career investigations class at the middle school, about 20 students, and gave them blank maps of these properties and gave them the list, the top 10 list, and told them, draw me stuff. And so I have those. I'm going to go through, post them online. A couple of the kids said, hey, what about airsoft? I said, sure, that sounds like great recreation. How many people play it? Lots. Okay, so they drew airsoft fields out there. So lots of good ideas that we'll get through the master plan process. But because of the timing now, we've actually pushed that back, the 2 years of funding this to 28 and 29. So in the last year and a half, we took over the parks staff. They previously were with General Properties. Now that they're on our staff, we are focusing on improving the conditions of the turf at all of our parks, but especially at Sealston. The negative we have at Sealston is we have irrigation on the baseball fields for the fescue. We do not have irrigation on the soccer fields for Bermuda. And so we're looking to do that this year to continue. We're pouring good money and good product into it, but not having the water is detrimental to really getting that Bermuda to grow in the summer when we need it to. So that's a request for this year. And then for next year, all of the sports fields, the 2 soccer fields and the baseball field at Sidell Brooks Park are the same. They are all Bermuda. And again, we have an irrigation well, but we don't have an irrigation system. So then the new facility that we're looking at, again, we've pushed this off to 26 because we still have not located a spot for it. It could be at the new Barnes Field as we add to that for the dog park, or once we take the wastewater treatment plant offline, we could, I'm hoping that that area will then just become part of the park. You can't access it from the other side, so you've got to go through the park to get to it. And so if we can expand the park in that direction, possibly that's the location to put the dog park. Be similar to Duff Park in Stafford, where you do have to walk a little ways from the parking area to get to the dog park. But it is the biggest complaint we get in our department, and the sheriff's office gets it as well, is people running their dogs off leash in our parks. Then the next phase of Sealston Sports Complex lighting would be 2 phases. One would be to do the other 2 soccer fields, and the other would be to do the other 2 baseball fields. At this point, we have not, we're looking at it as 26 and 28. I believe we would want baseball fields to be first if you had told me I had needed to make a choice today, but we are not, I'm not 100% sure of that. I think when we come for next year's budget, or for the 26 budget, we'll have a much better decision on which fields are more important to the community at this time. Because once we get these first 2 fields lit for soccer, those in Hunter Field, the pit, the original high school field, we'll have 3 rectangles. Right now we have 1, and actually we had to take the pit offline this year because it's just being overused. So this entire spring we're resting it and putting fertilizer and seed and aeration into that to get that back into a plating status. I'll ask Dawn blue in the face because playgrounds score so highly, and Sealston Sports Complex does not have a playground at it. We now have multiple family events there. We have Family Day in May. That is a social services, parks and recreation, and VFW combined event. We had over 2,000 people there. No playground for the kids. Now, there were plenty of activities at the event, but no playground. Obviously, we have soccer and baseball games there all the time. Again, no playground for the little ones on the property. There is one at the school, but if you're at a baseball game, the school is an awful long way away. And then, obviously, we host the Independence Celebration there. So again, an opportunity where we have a big community event. And then we've had a couple of actually outside requests that are looking to use the park as well. So I would love to be able to put that in next year, if possible. The big push we got, we renovated the tennis center. We put that $560-some thousand in, and immediately we're asked, the first day I showed up to play pickleball, when are we getting lights? I said, I'll ask. So we put it on the survey this year. For the people that are tennis pickleball people, it's number 1. For the rest of it, if you don't play pickleball or tennis, it's probably number 15 of my 15 projects. But those that really want it, really would like it. It would allow us to expand the season in the fall. We can put timer systems on them so they're not on all night. And with the new LEDs, they are very hooded and shaded so that there isn't the light overflow. It doesn't overspray the courts and go into the, because we do have those 3 houses that run right there along Kings Highway between the courts and the highway. But it's a request we're looking forward to possibly in 27. And then the Citizen Center was built in 1978, had a fire in 85, reopened in 86. And other than renovating the bathrooms and the warming kitchen in 2017, we really haven't done a thing to it. So we have some internal doors that need to be replaced, external doors, the exit doors, especially the 4 that are along the banquet hall. There's one that we have to slam to stay shut every night. And so they're just starting to fail. It's time to kind of give the building a little bit of an overhaul. The carpet has been in there for a number of years. I can't even tell you how long because I've only been here 5.5, but it was pretty crummy when I got here. We really could use a commercial refrigerator freezer for our operations because we do allow renters to use our fridge and freezer. But right now we have a very nice, probably 22 cubic foot household unit that actually was in the basement of the house on Roseland Road. And that's how we brought that up to replace the one that we had that was failing. So tried to stay in-house, do it cheaply, but there's some things that we need to add. And then that parking lot is 50% asphalt and 50% gravel. And so in FY28, we would like to upgrade that parking lot and the sidewalk. But that would also need to include some stormwater management consultant work to make sure that the detention pond behind the property, which is for us and the firehouse, is adequate to deal with that much impervious surface. And then the county trailway study implementation. The big thing with that is this year we did apply for a transportation alternatives program grant to build a 400-foot sidewalk from the middle school to the intersection of Dahlgren Road and Route 3. In that, there will be signal upgrades for the crossing signals, crosswalk upgrades where they will go from being the outline crosswalks to a ladder crosswalk. The stop lines will most likely be moved back so that there's more room. Every day during the school year, there are children leaving our middle school and our high school crossing there to run to Sheets to get a food before their sporting events or other after-school activities. And that intersection desperately needs to be improved before we have something bad happen. So that grant, we were in the top third of the state and the top 5 in the region. So I anticipate that coming through. And with all these plans that we've shown through the years, the idea of this item is to just squirrel away some money, just like we did years ago with the natural gas pipeline that we never did, but at least we had money set aside. But then it's there if we need it for another project. But hopefully when we win one of these grants, it's there for us to take over, just to use. But otherwise, it would sit in the account. And did I do that? So we're just looking for $250,000 a year to set aside each year.
Question, if I may? So you said top 3 in the state, top 5 in the region.
Top third.
Third in the state.
Yeah, there were like 250 applications and we're in the top 80 or so.
Okay, and then you said top 5 in the region.
Yes. So,
okay.
Yeah, for VDOT, that's in the Fredericksburg region.
Okay. So help clear my mind. So for the top 5 in the region, top 3rd in the state, are there some who are higher?
Yes. Now,
yeah,
there's a couple projects that are higher than us in the region. We are one of the least expensive projects. The upper level estimate that VDOT helped us work with was a total of $1 million for the project. Lord help us if 400 feet of sidewalk and some signal upgrades really cost $1 million, but VDOT is saying it costs $10 million right now to do a roundabout.
Okay.
So that's, the anticipation is that we'll be funded. We will be funded. It'll be the first time King George has ever gotten a transportation alternatives program grant. And so we'll be looking for the matching funds because it's an 80-20 split.
So I have a couple questions too. Parks and Rec is wonderful and it adds a lot of value to our communities for the things that people enjoy. I think the problem is when you talk about how to spend the money, different people enjoy different things. And unlike, an ambulance, there's a lot of preferences that can go into what we spend on Parks and Rec. So one question I have would be a county rec center. Can you tell me what we would be facilitating there that we don't already facilitate at the YMCA or any of our other locations?
So because we're only 27,000 people, I don't envision us trying to match what the YMCA does. I don't envision us having a workout room. I do not envision us having a pool. I think that, however many years ago it was, Mr. Kendrick, I know, was on the commission then when the county made the decision to forego the natatorium money that was provided by Hazel for Hop Yard and to use that as the feeder money or the seed money for the YMCA. I think they are, in my professional opinion, they are the partner to do the swimming aspect of our county at this time. So even if there were to be a cooperative project to help them establish an outdoor pool and water park similar to that they have at Masset would be wonderful. What we need, and the challenge is we run out of space or we'll have indoor soccer and all of a sudden you'll get a text, from our KG alert system at 5:30, no indoor soccer practice tonight. Why? Well, because the school forgot to tell us the spelling bee was happening in that gym. Or no basketball practice tonight at the middle school in the main gym. Why? Because they forgot to tell us they were hosting their district wrestling meet and they started at 2:00 and they're going to be there till 9:00. And so as much as we try to work with the schools and be thinking ahead to connect, sometimes things get overlooked and we just don't have that space. We also don't have, a proper exercise room. So we're doing karate at the school board building on a concrete floor in the cafeteria. We do Zumba, cardio drumming, and line dancing and therapeutic movements, which is a senior-based exercise class on the concrete tile floor in the Citizen Center. It would be great to have all those programs on a wood aerobics type floor where there'd be some give in that system. I envision having a senior room in the rec center. Right now, we had a couple come to us right after COVID and said, hey, we want to play cards. We play bridge. I said, I don't know if I can get you bridge, but I'm happy to try to start a program. Thursday afternoons at 1:30 this past week, they had 10 people there. They had first time I'd ever seen them have 2 tables of card players, but it's a group, 6, it's varied. They've lost a couple folks. But they play different card games and come, and it's just, 65 to, I think the oldest person to 87. And so it gives them a place to do. So that if we had a room like that, we could do all sorts of little clubs like that. They don't cost the county anything, but do add that aspect where seniors could come in and have a place where they could feel, meet some friends and hang out. So it's finding all those things. But again, it would have to be a whole master plan and meetings in each district, and really to find out what it is we need, and using a consultant to help us devise what it really is. Because with me, unfortunately, I'm a track dad, I'm a basketball dad, I'm a baseball, softball dad. So we don't want all my thoughts into it.
Well, I have numerous questions here. So with my first thought with the cards, the library has facilities, they have rooms and stuff. And so what I know about Parks and Rec and sports management is that a lot of the prime time where you don't have enough room because everybody wants it on a weeknight and a Saturday, those facilities go empty at 10 o'clock in the morning. So, as much as we can use, schools and other buildings at the opposite times, I think is really beneficial for getting the most out of our money. With some of the sports management stuff that you're talking about, tournaments and things like that, are we looking to manage those things in-house? Or are we going to have our facilities managed by any kind of public-private venture like they do in other places?
Depending on how we construct the building and really what its goal is, like Virginia Beach has a huge events recreation center. It is built with like a dozen basketball courts, which you each have 2 volleyball courts, to be honest. So it's a huge, so they actually just hosted on the track the state wrestling championships for 3A and 4A. It is run by a sports facilities firm. For what I'm thinking, the center that's jumped out to me is Rockingham County is building a center with a 200-meter indoor track, 3 basketball courts inside it. That would be inside the oval, another basketball court in a little off room, and then some meeting rooms in their offices. So it's geared for local, small basketball tournaments. There is no indoor track facility in this area. If your kids run indoor track, we don't call it indoor track here, we call it winter track, and they ran indoors, well, this year once before states because the weather was horrible every time we tried to go indoors. We didn't get to Lexington, it was snowing in the valley. So, that would be an opportunity where we might be if we could build that, we'd be the only one in the region, and we could bring in different teams throughout the region and the state, doing an all-day Saturday invitational the first weekend in December, which is before we play basketball. So we wouldn't have to worry about basketball courts, and would make, the Economic Development and Tourism Department very happy that we're hopefully drawing some teams here. Maybe they're coming far enough and they're actually going to stay in hotels and make that investment into our community.
Okay, one more last thing. I was out at Citadel Brooks Park the other day, and I know that you have said that shelter has been completed, but it was brought to my attention that the handicap ramp that goes off of that concrete pad goes directly into soft ground, and there is no parking or pathway for people with disabilities. Is there any way we can get that remediated immediately?
I will get with Mr. Muncie and see how we can address that. I know we did have a challenge because it took so long to complete. There was some redesign they had to do on the footers at one point that getting grass to grow. The timing of when they seeded in straw just didn't take as well as it should have, but absolutely.
I'm not talking grass.
Oh, I know. I
Okay.
but that's part of the softness, I think, is that it hasn't taken. I am working with the George Washington Regional Commission on the possibility of doing some green stormwater things there with the shelter, possibly doing rainwater harvesting so that we're not dumping all that water around the shelter. So if that goes away, that will also help the.
No, I think, you understand I'm saying a sidewalk, right?
In addition that the sidewalk needs to be the parking lot. Yeah, but the softness, that gets any of us if we, don't, you tell the child, you tell your 3-year-old, don't go that way. Oh, well, they went that way and now we got completely muddy shoes. But yes, actually, absolutely, I'll go look at that tomorrow. So then those are the four things that didn't make the list this year that will be in front of you at some point.
So I appreciate the planning that goes into this and the citizen input. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, so that we have some reasoning behind doing things rather than your judgment would be very good, but one person's judgment probably doesn't match with a lot of people. But no, I appreciate what you've gone through and done. The Sealston Sports Complex irrigation. What time has it impacted the ability to play soccer on those fields, or is it just that the grass isn't as good as you would like it to be?
So this time last year, we were still, because I picked up the staff and we had better funding for turf maintenance starting July 1 that summer. We really didn't do anything in July and August. So we were gearing up at this time to really hit those Bermuda grass fields as we got into the warmer months. The travel soccer teams that play up there in particular, but also our rec players, would look at the field. We have dormant Bermuda, so you have nice yellow, and you have spots of green, which obviously is not good on Bermuda because it's clover and onions and everything else that shouldn't be there. Well, they look across the park to the baseball fields, which is fescue, so everything's green. So they just envision that those fields are perfect, even though they also have a lot of weeds in them, but the comparison wasn't there. So we took a hit on social media. We met with the club afterwards. We discussed and tried to explain, how we were getting through this. Unfortunately, last spring, the Bermuda took forever to wake up, whether it was weather or the fact that we hadn't fed it probably since we put it in. So now we are giving it fertilizer on a regular basis. But the problem is when we overseed or are looking to have water, the only thing we have up there is water reels. And so we can hook those into the thing, but by the time that water reel comes across the entire 11.5 acres, it's dry again. And Bermuda, when you want it to grow, needs lots of water.
I guess my only concern is it's a big price tag to water a field.
That's a very high estimate because there's an just in case we need to actually upgrade the pump and the well. Hopefully that's not the case, and it's just running lines and putting the proper heads out there, and we're well under budget.
Okay. Second question: your tennis center lighting. How much use does the tennis courts get?
So we have 87 local users on the Team Reach app. It's an app that in this area, in this region, the pickleball players use a lot. And so we've had nights with 4 and 5 courts going in the fall. It will pick up here now in the next couple weeks. But the hard part right now is general population can't get on the courts till 5 o'clock because the tennis teams are on them. And general population, we came to an agreement with the schools that we won't have general population on the courts between 7:30 and 3 because although those courts are a park between the two schools, the idea of strangers on campus in today's day and age makes the schools nervous. So, and they are using the courts for physical education. So the hours are limited. In the fall, it was tough. There were people that get out there at 5. And we were playing till it was dark. I was like, I cannot play anymore. The ball's going to hit me in the face. And during that time, while we have this big group of pickleball players, there always seemed to be a pair of people on the other side of courts playing tennis. Today, I was up there. I drove into the parking lot, just being spring break for the schools, and there was a group of 8, I think, up playing pickleball. and there was a group of 2 playing tennis. So folks are finding it now that it's done and playable, which is a good thing because before it was not.
Okay, again, my only comment, $350,000 for lighting. I was just trying to get a sense of how many people's going to get a benefit out of that.
Yeah, and at this time, it's a future need. It's not something that we're looking at for this year. And hopefully as we, because right now we're really only 3 months into the good season of when it was finally cool enough for people to play all day long to know how many folks are going to be there. So we'll gather more data as we go through school and the summer.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the effort that goes into this.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Last but not least, Mr. Dines, Information and Technology.
It's denied.
This is the part I love.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, distinguished members of Planning Commission. Our first request is for pretty much annual computer replacement. And this year we see the need for 70 desktop computers, laptops. There's a mix of those. There's probably 45 and 25. We do this, of course, to make sure that all of our computers that our users have will be under warranty, so we can make sure we can get that replaced and parts that we need to ever put in to fix them when they break. And what we're seeing with the onset of many applications, upgrades, and needs for resources for the computers to actually work and run for our staff, that we're going to have to make sure we up our RAM and Intel chip. So it's kind of the driver and some of the new ones, especially from the GIS department. Our new Commissioner of Revenue has new software. The community development has software that has been known to slow down at some times. And some of them are on the list as well to have them replaced this year and next year. And we want to have everyone running the newest version of the Windows operating system, Windows 11, because it's a good system. So as you see, for 25, it starts out with the $90,000 for those 70. And in 26, there won't be as many that we need. So that will represent about 45 to get to 50,000 for FY 2026. Any questions on that part? All right. Next one is our network equipment, Cisco Meraki upgrades. What we do is we were able to buy a few years of equipment at a time. And as we added on, the length of time of our maintenance agreement got pushed back. So usually when you buy something from Meraki, it's like a 5-year cycle. But we bought so many things when we did I don't know if you remember my redundancy plan that we did, and that was going through 2019 and 2020. And so we bought so many things that they kind of pushed us back, so we didn't have to buy things as early. But our year for replacement runs out in 2026. So what we want to do is upgrade our appliances, which are our firewalls that we have. And we have 14 buildings, so we want to replace all of those. We have some network switches that they use, which usually last longer, so we don't have to worry about those as much. So we do have, with the new courthouse coming in, we're going to have some more switches in there because there's a boatload of new technologies that are going in that building that we didn't even know that would really be there. It's things like elevators being on the network, a pneumatic tube that passes paperwork through the office. I thought that they could just send scans to PDF and go to people, but they're going to have the pneumatic tube to move paperwork around in the new courthouse since it's on multiple levels. So each of these items, like I said, will be a license renewal. And so when those are all grouped together, it's about $50,000 for this fiscal year to be ready for 2026.
So it's hardware and software upgrades?
No, it's.
So the first three is hardware and then.
Yes, those are all, and yeah, that's right. The access points also, I left that out. The access points are also in that. So that's all, those three are hardware. And then you have to have a license. You have to have a cloud license when you buy them. And then you have to maintain your maintenance agreement. So these are for the ones that we have running out that started in 2019.
Are you on managed switches now?
Oh, yes. It's all cloud management. My next one is a case in point that just happened this evening. Mr. Sullins sent me an email that I did not see because I had my presentation covering my phone, but he came in because he couldn't hear. Mr. Collins texted, he couldn't hear. I had to go in, when Mr. Clark was doing his presentation and I had that screen that came up, I had to put it back on. So we would like, and Priscilla's husband, Jeff, who is our State of Escape, our engineers for streaming. The YouTube is fine because it's going directly to them. But of course, we have this XR18 on the floor, which is what's putting out the people for the GoToMeeting. There's still some people use GoToMeeting. Mr. Collins loves GoToMeeting. We're trying to get him off of it, but he loves it. So the oh, okay. Well, I appreciate you trying, and I wish I had not had my presentation covered up. So what we're going to do, and Mr. Voigt has put together a scope of work, and we're going to have dedicated 4K cameras mounted in the room. We're going to have broadcast improvement with graphics, such as Mr. Kendrick says something, the camera will go to him and it will say, Gary Kendrick, at large. No, I think we need that. I think we need that. We're also going to have new microphones, and they will be, especially for the chairman will be able to mute if it needs to happen. Like Mr. Moss could mute me right now, and you wouldn't be able to hear me if I try to bang my fist on the table. And also, we can mute members that might be a little out of hand up there. You know, you never know. Also, we're going to have dedicated systems for integration. So we'll be able to move and have layout changes for what the cameras are looking at. So what we'll do is, I won't be here anymore. I'll be in the back in the corner. We'd like to have a table of some sort that will have the equipment that Jeff's wife is using right now, and mine will be kind of combined on that table, on a cart, on a rolling cart. So that way, all of this can be moved off the floor, all these wires hanging all over the place. We won't need that XR18 receiver anymore. All this can be, I guess, Mr. Stewart and people as such can sit there now, but we'll all be back there. So I will have direct connection into their feed. I want to worry about this thing going out, the go-to meeting being flaky. I'll be able to know exactly what's going on. I might have headphones and I might be listening to the go-to meeting if we still keep it. We kind of like to move towards YouTube, but Mr. Collins loves go-to meeting, as Mr. Sellers knows. So we think that the new system will be able to work for joint meetings much better. We want everybody on the floor because we're going to have wireless mics. We're going to have lapel mics, wireless. So the system will be much more integrated for us to use it wherever we want and in the best way possible without carrying microphones to Company One, the sheriff's office, or like last week we had a meeting at the Citizen Center. So with these streamlined processes, it'll make the workload much easier and it's better quality for our citizens. So, and also it will provide for future growth because it'll be a system that can be built on through modules that Jeff has found and having his total scope of work for the betterment of all of our broadcasts. And it'll be able to do remote things too. So if you wanted to have something like when there's a Christmas tree lighting, that could broadcast from there in a much easier way because we could roll our card out there. We just need power and we'll have wireless capabilities. If someone was going to speak, we have a choir singing. It's just the best way to go at this point because we can't keep doing this because this equipment's about 5 years old, going on 6. So it's not going to last forever. So we need a refresh. And part of that refresh is to make it a better overall production for everyone. So we have broken down the costs for the construction installation because we want to get rid of, like I said, rid of these wires on the floor. We want to have them hidden. With the software to run all these aspects, training, documentation. Also, this is Mr. Collins especially like to have the ability for everyone to see how you vote without having to have the staff try to, who voted yes, who voted no? So there'll be a visual thing on your microphones, red and green. Then we can put the results of the votes through the software that will show on the screen. So it'll be more visual for people to follow along instead of being possibly confused about the votes. So the equipment for the boardroom broadcast part is $30,000. The new boardroom mics, wireless, visual voting is $35,000. And the equipment for the portable system, as I mentioned, that will be in the back room is $22,000 for a total of $87,000. And if you add that up with the construction software and training and documentation, you get $115,000. We don't think it will be exactly that high, but because Jeff has found some savings, but we wanted to have that placeholder. And it's always better to have less that you need. You can give it back to the county. So if you total, any questions on that project? No? Okay. So the totals for the whole project cost for fiscal year 2025 is $255,000 and then 226, $50,000 for a total of $305,000 over the next 2 years. That's all I have.
So I guess I appreciate that IT has to be refreshed and it moves at an incredible pace. But I'll defer to somebody with more IT knowledge to really discuss this because I'm out of my league. But in terms of the conference room here, or the boardroom here, I guess I would just hope that you would try to find a balance and that the Board of Supervisors would find a balance between providing access to our citizens in the county who want to, view things, any meetings in here, remotely, with, we don't get too fancy and like the lights about how we vote. Yeah, I'm not excited about that. But, if we just keep a reasonable balance is all. I guess I'm saying I want the Chevrolet version rather than the Cadillac version. So if that's what you've done, I'm good, but I'll leave it to somebody else to evaluate what model we're buying here. So.
That's that balance between wants, needs, and budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean to. So one of the things about this process, that my perception of it is that we shouldn't overly worry about the cost. All right. That's not really what we're tasked to do, but we're sort of here. This is the way I've always played it anyway. We're looking at the value of what's being requested. What does it do for the county or the citizens of the county? What is its value as opposed to the cost? It'll be up to, the Board of Supervisors and the financial people in the county to figure out how they fund all this stuff.
I think it's well said, value, not necessarily cost.
So I'm not getting overly hung up on the cost, although like thinking about a fire truck, $2.5 million for a fire truck, never really realized they were that expensive. But when they say it, I'm like, wow, I can sort of understand that given the cost of a sedan, so I'm trying to not get hung up on the cost, but looking at the value of it. So, but we shouldn't be insensitive to the cost either. I mean, if he came in here saying he wants to spend $1 million to upgrade this room, I'd sort of go, nope, we don't need that.
Absolutely not.
So.
I want a new room, really. Also, this is a placeholder in the CIP, but this is going to be an ARPA project, so it won't cost the taxpayers. It's ARPA money. But we have to put it here and then present it to you, present it to the board, and then when we're ready to go through with our ARPA requests, then it gets transferred over.
So I take back everything I said about money.
Yeah.
I'm always willing to spend other people's money.
And I shouldn't have left that out in the beginning.
Makes a big difference.
Yes, it does. It's a luxury. But we do need to clean the room up. It's just.
Well, and if there's ARPA budget for it. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. No, there's no old business. There's no new business. Director's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll kind of just touch off that from the CIP request. So you'll use those ranking systems to fill out these spreadsheets. We're going to ask that you provide those to us by the 25th. That's the date before we advertise for your hearings. We will send out periodic reminders for you. And then we will tally that up and bring it back to your next meeting in April to go over that and make sure that is the consensus of the Planning Commission before the report is forwarded to the board with your recommendation. Moving over to the director's report, some department updates. Matthew Lanson is a building inspector with the department. His last day was on March 8th, 2024, and we wish him well in his future endeavors. We did extend an offer to Austin Schumann as the new environmental inspector. He accepted, and his first day was Monday, February 5th. He is familiar with the county. He's lived here for 7 years. He also worked in Stafford County, for I believe the last 7, and he is happy to be in King George versus Stafford County. He tells us every day, so that's good. Moving over to the permit intake, we issued 11 new single-family dwellings with a total of 106 permits for the month. That is a monthly revenue of $53,290.64. This brings the total year to date to $471,772.95. The department also conducted 455 inspections. That's a daily average of nearly 23 inspections. There were no changes to the major site plan submissions. Everything remained the same there. And upcoming to your agenda, we will continue discussions on the CIP in April. And that will conclude the director's report.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What is going into the old 7-Eleven building on the corner of 301 and 3?
The old 7-Eleven building. That is a retail establishment. You may know them as Catfish Kelly's Country Store. They have a branch in South Stafford, right when you come across the line off of Route 3. Yeah. So that will actually be their second branch. They received their zoning permit, and we just issued some building permits, so they are upgrading the facility.
All right, thank you.
Where is that?
That is at the intersection of 3 and 301 where the Sheets is. If you remember, there was an old 7-Eleven there, and Sheets pretty much put them out of business.
Yeah.
I also have a question. I spoke to you about a email that I received about Ashley Topping and her family subdivision. You said there was another case that was similar to that. Can you give me any kind of updates on what we can do or what they need to do or how we're handling anybody who kind of got caught by the ordinance change and needs some help?
Sure, I can touch on both of those. So what Ms. Flatley is referring to were two family subdivisions that were submitted just before the new ordinance was enacted. So those were reviewed off of the new ordinance. Both of those cases, there was one comment in particular that was detrimental to both of them, and that was the property cannot be subdivided until it is held by the owner for a minimum period of 5 years. So in that case, one gentleman had it for about 1.5 years, and I believe Ms. Toppings was close to 2 years on those. There were other avenues presented to them. One was they could build an accessory dwelling by right now. And the other, he was also able to do a minor subdivision. It just came as a shock that they submitted for a family, and now obviously they couldn't do it. As far as a text amendment process, that would be up to the discretion of the board. I will share internally, using the ordinance, you really don't know what you have until you apply it to everyday cases. There's some good things, there's some bad things, there's some things that really should be changed. We kind of have an internal list going on as of now of possible text amendments. Again, that's at the discretion of the board. Hopefully we can have discussions on those in the near future. What we were trying to kind of avoid was going one by one if we're going to have 20-some things that they want to change.
So then we don't have any responsibilities there. It goes to the board for those changes?
So the procedure for a text amendment is somebody needs to request it to the board. If it is the consensus among the board, then they will direct staff to entertain a text amendment. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and do some background research on that, compare other similar localities. We'll prepare a report to you. If we're in agreement on that, the Planning Commission will then schedule a public hearing where we can receive input on that, and then you will provide your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, who has the kind of the ultimate decision-making authority of whether or not they want to change that text.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the update.
Couldn't we also initiate a review of the ordinance here?
I don't see why not. I think we certainly probably could have a work session in the near future if it was the desire of the commission.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking with the new ordinance. I mean, I've spoken to you a couple of times about it where that is what I think. I do think that we need to get the feedback and, you know, the real challenges of the day-to-day aspects and crack it open, hear what you've dealt with, talk about the challenges that folks have made contact with board members, and see if we do those refinements. And to me, it's just logical. I mean, if you build an enormous building, inevitably you're going to have to go in at the bitter end and tweak and adjust and touch up paint and
You don't know
fix
what
the
you have
burnt out
until you
bulb,
use it.
right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's what this is as well. We did a major overhaul. It's, to me, inevitable that you go in, crack it up, crack it open and make those fine-tuned adjustments.
I could say as of now, unless we get a case in the very near future, on your next agenda, we'll just have the CIP consensus review. If it's the consensus among the planning commission, we could incorporate it, you know, something under new business, just a general discussion.
Just for general information, can you tell us sort of where the data center is at? And also, we were given a heads up several months ago that there was a second data center heading our way. And were we going to see either one of those? Are we going to see the first one again, or is that strictly in the hands of the Board of Supervisors? And on the second one, the second data center, when will we likely see it?
For the first data center, are you referencing the Birchwood Amazon project?
The Amazon data center that we sent over to the Board of Supervisors that was approved by the old board last year, but the new board was taking a second look at it. I just haven't heard anything about it.
Sure. So the status of those, we have been working with their engineering group. We've had a rough grading package for the Birchwood power plant site. That's about the almost 300-acre site to remove the pads for that old power plant facility and to kind of mass grade and get it pad site ready, as well as incorporate the stormwater infrastructure. We just finished our second review of that. I would anticipate that is the third review will probably be approvable. That would probably be in a month or two. As far as a site plan, I really can't give you a defined answer on that. That hangs in the balance of the performance agreement. I really can't approve a site plan that doesn't have any utilities in place, and that performance agreement was a very large plan on those utilities. That's kind of what's hanging up in the balance on the Board of Supervisors. The other one, I believe, is that Green Energy Ventures. That's the one close by, the industrial data center rezoning. Green Energy Ventures resubmitted also just before the new ordinance was enacted. So again, they were reviewed off of the new ordinance. They had some substantial changes that they needed to make in that. I would anticipate that their resubmission will come pretty much any day now. I would think with that many changes, it will likely go through at least another review before it is brought before the commission.
So a couple of months out at least.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that was other business. All right, with that, do we have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting in April.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Motion seconded.
All in favor? Aye.